When you think of Brett Favre, a few things probably come to mind. Toughness, that cannon of an arm, the ultimate gunslinger. For a whole generation, he was football. But his story, well, it's way more complicated than just a highlight reel. It's a story of an Iron Man, but also a story full of paradoxes. So picture this, it's September 2024. This isn't some retirement speech or a Hall of Fame induction. This is Brett Favre speaking before a congressional committee about a massive welfare scandal. And then he drops this bombshell, a Parkinson's diagnosis. It just added this whole other, deeply personal layer to an already very complicated public story. So you gotta ask, right? How did we get here? How does a Super Bowl winning hero, the toughest guy on the field, end up in a situation like that? To really understand the man, you have to go back to the beginning, back to how the myth was built in the first place. To get it, we've got to go back, way back, to Mississippi. Favre was the son of this tough-as-nails football coach, and he became a star at Southern Miss. The crazy, last-minute stuff he pulled off in college, yeah, that was basically a preview of what was to come. He gets drafted by Atlanta, but that doesn't last long. He's quickly traded to the Green Bay Packers, and honestly, that one move changed football history. He took a team that was really struggling and turned them into an absolute powerhouse. He became the first and still the only player to win 3 straight MVP awards, and of course, he capped it all off with a Super Bowl ring. But here's the thing, it was never just about the wins with Favre. His entire identity, what people loved about him, was forged in pure grit. This guy built a reputation for playing through just unimaginable pain. Broken thumbs, sprained ankles, you name it, he played through it. To the fans, he was basically indestructible. And look, this wasn't some PR spin or a story cooked up by the media. He went out there every single Sunday and proved it, putting his body on the line again and again. That toughness, that became the foundation of his entire legend. Which brings us to this number, 297. Let that sink in for a second. That's how many games he started in a row. In a sport as brutal as pro football, that number is almost unbelievable. It's the record that officially stamped his name in the history books as the Iron Man. But here's the paradox. While this Iron Man legend was being built in public, something else was happening behind the scenes. A really dangerous, private battle was being fought. And the very same toughness that let him play through pain on the field, well, it was fueling a massive crisis off of it. I mean, just look at this. It's a jarring split screen of a life, right? On the field, he's hoisting MVP trophies and winning championships. Off the field, he's deep in a severe addiction to painkillers. Some reports said he was taking as many as 15 Vicodin a day, all just to keep getting back out there. And this wasn't just some minor issue. It got to the point where it was life-threatening. He actually suffered a seizure. And after that, he publicly announced he was entering the league's substance abuse program. And then, incredibly, he comes out of rehab and has one of the best seasons of his career, leading the Packers to a Super Bowl win. But the fight wasn't over. He went back to rehab again in 1998, this time for issues with alcohol. So you'd think the drama would peak there, right? Nope, not even close. Just like his rise to the top was legendary, the way he left the game was a whole saga in itself. It wasn't a clean break. It was more like a multi-year soap opera of retirements and comebacks. So he has this big, tearful retirement press conference in Green Bay. And then, well, he changes his mind. But the Packers had already moved on, which led to this really messy divorce that sent him to the New York Jets. Then, a year later, he does it again, unretires to join the Minnesota Vikings, the one team Green Bay fans absolutely hate. It was just shocking. He finally hung it up for good after one last season in 2010. So he's finally done with football. You'd think things would quiet down. But with Brett Favre, they rarely do. His life in retirement stayed a story of celebrated highs and some really public, really damaging lows. And at first, it was all golden. I mean, he was welcomed back to Green Bay like a king. They retired his number. Then, in 2016, he gets inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It seemed like his legacy as one of the all-time greats was set in stone. But then, just a few years after that, things took a really sharp turn. A massive scandal blew up back in his home state of Mississippi, and suddenly, Brett Favre's name was back in the headlines for all the wrong reasons.
Okay, so let's break this down because it's a big one. A state audit finds that millions and millions of dollars, money went for the absolute poorest families in the poorest state in the country, was misspent. And of that money, $1.1 million was paid directly to Favre for speaking events he allegedly never even did. Now, for his part, Favre has always said he had no idea the money came from welfare funds. He has since paid the principal back, but the controversy is far from over.
So, all of this, it brings us right back to where we started. How do you make sense of it all? When you put everything together, the immortal records, the painful addiction, the public scandals, and now a Parkinson's diagnosis, what is the real legacy of Brett Favre?
Okay, look, on one hand, you have the player, and his greatness on the field, it's undeniable. Those numbers speak for themselves. Over 71,000 yards passing, more than 500 touchdowns, and that just insane streak of 297 starts that might never be broken. By any football metric, he's a giant of the game.
But then you have the other side of the coin. You just can't tell the story of Brett Favre without including the darker chapters. The addiction that almost cost him everything, and the welfare scandal that has really tarnished his image after his career. He's a complete paradox.
So the question people always ask is, was he a hero or was he a villain? But maybe that's just the wrong question. The story of Brett Favre is a powerful reminder that our public figures are rarely just one thing or the other. His legacy is complex, it's challenging, and it's a deeply human story of both incredible greatness and incredible frailty, all wrapped up in one.